All right. Jesus is the answer. Part 14. Let me give a recap. Because we want to make sure this is a factual case for Christ. Great if somebody gets saved. I'm just really worried about presenting the truth. So, excuse me. So, part 1, we talked about how there is a religious need. Now, in general, we know a religious need for God, but there's actually a religious need for Jesus or a messianic figure. And why would there be a religious need for a messianic figure unless there really is a messianic figure to fulfill the need? I don't need Puff the Magic Dragon, okay? I'm not like, oh man, where's my Puff Magic Dragon at? No. It's not needed because it's fiction. So there's a religious need for Jesus. Part 2, we had a good long discussion over the historical existence of Jesus. So went through a lot of proof outside the Bible, showing piece by piece how it has to be true that Jesus existed. Then we talked about in part 3 the fame of Jesus, how the entire world, to a point, really the entire world revolves around the history of the person of Christ. Then part 4, we talked about philosophy that justifies miracles and the supernatural. We can't explain nature, therefore we can't make nature exclusive. There has to be another non-natural or supernatural explanation. Jesus is the answer. Part 5, the Gospels are the historical sources. Now, in that one, I'm arguing for the Gospels as historically reliable. I'll probably go further later, but right now, we just want to establish the simple fact that these are historical books that were found thousands of years ago, very close to the story. Jesus is the answer, part 6, Jesus the prophet. There are prophecies Jesus made, some short term, some long term. In the long term, Jesus did successfully fulfill the idea that his gospel, his message, would reach all the way around the world, and it has. Part 7, Jesus the teacher. Some of the greatest figures in world history have had a lot of good to say about Jesus Christ, and they wish they could trade their vast empires for him. Jesus is the answer, part 10, the resurrection, the only plausible explanation. Part 11, the resurrection roundup. I basically run over those points again, showing more specifically the logic there. Jesus is the answer, part 12, and part 13, both dealing with the virgin birth and miracles. So basically, we've made a case for his beginning, we've made a case for his ending. Therefore, what do you have left? Everything else, ought to be true. If he's gone that far, you're going there already. But today we're going to focus on, what did Jesus claim? Did Jesus claim to be God? All right, so I guess, what do I do first? What do I say first? All right, let's look at this passage in the book of Daniel. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. All right, Daniel chapter 7. verse 13. It says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory. Let's see here, where were we? Okay. And a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. So, the Son of Man is Almighty. He's the Ancient of Days. And his kingdom, that which shall not be destroyed, is an eternal kingdom. So he's the king. Okay. So, what's interesting about this is the idea that the Son of Man is a title that Jesus uses of himself. Now, I'm not going to go through every reference. In the New Testament, there are 108 references to the Son of Man. In the Gospels, there's about 94. So, with that many references pointing back to Daniel, it's pointing to the fact that Jesus is claiming to be God because he's claiming to be the Son of Man. Now, here's another nice little passage. It says, this is the Gospel of John, chapter 9. It says, Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and when he had found him, he said unto him, Dost thou believe on the Son of God? This is Jesus talking, so he's claiming to be the Son of God. He says, he answered and said, Why is he, Lord, that I might believe, or who is he, Lord, that I might believe on him? And Jesus said unto him, Thou hast both seen him, and it is he that talketh with thee. But he said, Lord, I believe. And he worshipped him. So obviously he's being recognized as the Lord. I call him the Adonai. And he is worshipped as God is worshipped. So that's very important because he is making this claim. But he has the golden ticket. The golden ticket is the fact that he was risen from the dead. And he made all these claims beforehand. Kind of like the great Bambino, Babe Ruth. Yeah. Went out, okay, it's going to be over there. All right. Knocks it out of the park. Right to the same field he went to. So, Jesus does claim to be the Lord God. Let's see another passage that might be fun. All right. Jesus says in John 14:6, Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. Right? He's the exclusive way. If ye had known me, you should have known my Father also, and from henceforth ye known him and have seen him. He's saying, see the Father, see me, God, and one of the persons. Let's see here. Verse 10. They said, verse 9. Jesus saith unto him, Have I been so long time with you, and yet Hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath overseen me. Sorry, he hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, show us the Father? Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else believeth me. See here. I'm sorry, let me get back on that. Verse 11. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake. So, he's definitely claiming to be God. Now, what kind of person claims to be God? Well, it could be a liar, or it could be a lunatic, or it could be the Lord. And you have to do a process of elimination. Let's look at lunatic. Maybe he was a lunatic. In psychology, they have something called a God complex. Do you know that anyone who feels as though they're God above everyone else and want to be subjected to special treatment all the time? Some people tend to forget that we're not the creators of the world, and hence we aren't God. It says that this was a psychological article I did, or I looked up. Definition of the God complex. The God complex is a psychological illusion. Exactly what the name suggests, a personality flaw in the human beings, especially those with great power who perceive themselves to be omniscient. So, essentially, somebody is, very narcissistic at that point. Now, some things to watch out for. This says that people with God complex are extremely arrogant. They're judgmental. They cannot tolerate criticism. They need to influence. Finally, they're addicted to power. And they tell you ignore them, leave them, get in a confrontation, set the limits, get help. All right, the next one, okay, type of crazy that Jesus could be. And by the way, everybody, talks about Jesus. He's always forgiving and loving, things like that. But the Messiah complex, the term Messiah complex is not addressed in the diagnostic and as not a clinical term, nor diagnosable disorder. However, the symptoms of individuals suffering from grandiose delusions or delusions of grandeur, reportedly in patients suffering from bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Okay, so somebody with a Messiah complex might be bipolar. They might be schizophrenic. They basically lose control a lot because they think that they're responsible for everything that goes on in the world. Then, the last option is Jesus just a dirty dog liar. All right. So he says, if Jesus was not insane and claiming to be divine, the next assumption is that Christ was a liar. It's flat out. I mean, if that would make him a wicked person. You can't say one thing and it's not true. That's a lie. So if Jesus was not insane and claiming to be divine, the next assumption is that Jesus was a liar. If lying were a sin, what am I saying? All right. This is a archaeologist that I'm going to quote here, Joseph P. Free. The whole trial of Jesus abounds with illegalities. To mention only a few, it may be pointed out that it was held at night, there was no lack of definitive charge. An interrogation of the fixed accused was made, and there was haste in condemnation. Christ was then brought before Pilate, who, against his own convictions and through fear of a charge of disloyalty, Caesar yielding up the one whom he had declared guiltless. All right, so if Jesus was nothing but a liar, then you would have had something to condemn him for, and everybody would agree to it. This is proof that Jesus is God. Right, so, all right, yeah, and I go through here and I talk about some of what the apostles teach about the deity of Christ. I'm not going to do that today. Let's see here. So, what do we have left? Let me over. So, if Jesus can make these predictions and say these things and then die and then conquer death, he's not human. He's just not. So, when we see these, times of waiting, uh, all right, I chose late time, but let me just gather my wits for a second. So, there's three options with the trilemma. He's either the Lord, he's a liar, or he's a lunatic. He's not a liar because he's such a moral hero. He's not a lunatic because he's intelligent and he's able to teach people. But, the only option left is that he is the Lord God. And Isaiah has a lot to say about that. Isaiah calls him, or at least like in the book of Isaiah, God calls him Emmanuel, which means God with us. And later on, the virgin birth, or actually later on in Isaiah 96, it says that he is the God. So, basically we have, in Isaiah, was also found with Dead Sea Scrolls. It was much older than Sinaiticus. It was about 100 or more years old, 150 years old. So, is he the Lord? Well, he defeated death, which kind of gives him like a wild card. Say, hey, I've done all this. But since he's done it and then he's conquered nature, then the rest of reality seems pretty easily conquered. And if he were a lunatic, he just wouldn't control himself. So Jesus is once again sharp. All right, I'll catch you later. Hold on. I don't know. Maybe I should do this one over. Obviously, I'm way too sleepy. If he's not the liar and he's not the Lord, he's a lunatic. We know he exists. We don't have any other theory other than he rose from the dead. And so, you're brought back to that. We know he's a miracle worker. We know he put his money where his mouth is. So Jesus is.